friends here. Welcome back to the channel. It's beautiful to have you back here, and it's nice that we continue to study our science together. Today, we're going to talk about the cells of the nervous system. We've been doing a lot about the nervous system in the past few weeks, and it's good. I thought it's good that we discuss all the cells that are present in the nervous system and the function of all these cells. What are the things that these cells do? Now, it's important to note that the cells of the nervous system are divided majorly into two. We have the cells that we call the neurons, and we also have the cells that we call the glial cells. Now, the neurons are majorly two types. We have the sensory neurons and the motor neurons, while the glial cells refers to all the other types of cells that are present in the nervous system but are not neurons. Now, very quickly to talk about the neurons, we said we have two types of neurons. We have sensory neurons and motor neurons. Now, what do the sensory neurons do? We have, or human beings have, the sense organs, and these sense organs includes the mouth, the nose, the tongue, and then skin. Now, all these sense organs are interfacing with the environment, and so they come in contact with stimuli. The eyes can see, the nose, can smell, the ear for hearing, and all of that. So, on all these sense organs, we have receptors. Receptors are present on all these sense organs, and now these receptors are connected to the sensory neurons. So when information hits these receptors on the sense organs, this information is sent in the form of stimuli through the sensory neuron. Now it goes from the sensory neuron and connects all the way to the spinal cord. Now when this information gets, or this impulse or signal or stimulus or whatever you want to call it, gets to the spinal cord, from there it finds its way to the brain. It is interpreted by the brain and sent down through the spinal cord to the body. Now, when it comes to the spinal cord, there are what we call the motor neurons. Now, the motor neurons are also cells, and the functions of the motor neuron is that the information that is coming from the spinal cord, is sent to the muscles and the endocrine gland. This is important because when the brain has processed information that came from the sensory neuron and they have sent it back, this information is processed and then it tells the body what to do. If a particular muscle needs to, either move in a particular direction so that the person can either move his leg or move his hand or move his head or move it totally away from the place where he is. These are the functions of muscles, and it is the motor neuron that takes that information from the spinal cord all the way to these muscles. And so in that way, that information is given to the muscles. Now, not only is the information given to the muscles, the information is also given to the endocrine glands so that those endocrine glands are able to secrete whatever hormone that they want to secrete at that particular time. So this is important: sensory neuron and motor neuron. Now, apart from the sensory and motor neuron, we now have what we call the glial cells. Now, for better understanding of the glial cells, we realize that there are glial cells present in the central nervous system. There are glial cells that are present in the peripheral nervous system. Now, the glial cells that are present in the central nervous system, there are four. And then the glial cells present in the peripheral nervous system are two. Now, let's look at the glial cells that are present in the central nervous system. We have four of them. The first one being the astrocytes. Astrocytes. Now, what kind of cells are astrocytes? Astrocytes are cells that are present in what we call the blood-brain barrier, BBB, blood-brain barrier. And these cells are there, they create that barrier between within the brain, and they use that barrier, to regulate the materials that come into the brain and that also leave the brain. The blood-brain barrier is very, very important. It also regulates the flow of blood to the brain and out of the brain. So these astrocytes are the cells that are present or responsible for maintaining and forming and maintaining this blood-brain barrier. That is the astrocytes. That's the first cell that we have, the first glial cell that we have in the central nervous system. Secondly, we have the oligodendrocytes. Now, these oligodendrocytes, these are cells that produce our myelin sheaths. Remember, we discussed about myelin sheaths, which are those fatty tissues that are present on axons of neurons. So for your sensory neurons, the myelin sheaths that are present on the axons of the sensory neurons are the myelin sheaths. The cells that produce those myelin sheaths are the cells we refer to as our oligodendrocytes. So we've talked about two cells now within the two glial cells within the central nervous system. Now, after our oligodendrocytes, we now have what we call our microglial cells. Remember, we said astrocytes, oligodendrocytes. The third one now astrocytes, sorry, oligodendrocytes. The third one now are the microglial cells. Now, microglial cells are a sort of, they are immune system cells. They are cells of the immune system, and they provide protection. They provide immune system protection against inflammation, against injury for the central nervous system. So for the spinal cord and the brain and even the sensory neurons, the microglial cells provide immune system protection. So there are types of immune system cells, and they are important. Now, the fourth type of glial cells that are present in the central nervous system are the ependymal cells. The ependymal cells, and these ependymal cells are responsible for the secretion of cerebrospinal fluid. Cerebrospinal fluid is an important fluid that nourishes the spinal cord and the brain, keeps it supple, keeps it wet, and keeps it protected. So these ependymal cells are the cells that secrete cerebrospinal fluid, making them very important. Now, these are the four cells that are present within the central nervous system: the astrocytes, the oligodendrocytes, the microglial cells, and lastly, the ependymal cells. Now, when we go to the peripheral nervous system, we just have two types of cells that are present in the peripheral nervous system. Now, these two types of cells, the first one are the Schwann cells, the second one are the satellite cells. Now, what are the Schwann cells? The Schwann cells are also like our oligodendrocytes, because the Schwann cells are the cells that produce myelin sheaths. But the myelin sheaths that they produce are for motor neurons. So they are involved in the peripheral nervous system. The myelin sheaths that they produce, that is the Schwann cells, they produce myelin sheaths, and these myelin sheaths are present on what? The motor neuron. Now, the last cells we discussed about are the satellite cells. And what are these satellite cells? These satellite cells are also immune system cells. And these immune system cells, they provide protection now, not for the central nervous system, but for the peripheral nervous system. That brings us to the end of our discourse. We've discussed the cells of the nervous system. So you have your sensory neuron, you have your motor neuron, then you have your glial cells, and your glial cells of the central nervous system. You have your astrocytes, you have your oligodendrocytes, you have your microglial cells, you have your ependymal cells. And then when you come to the peripheral nervous system, you have your Schwann cells, and you also have the last one, which is the satellite cells. Thank you for listening to this lecture. I hope we've learned a lot, and have a wonderful day.